down here.
Hey, who are you?
Is that your dad?
What happened?
What happened? He came down. There was a man. Who shot you?
Who else is here?
My sister.
We had triple homicide.
On June 15th, 2021, 911 dispatch in Iowa received a call for a break-in and homicide. The caller said he had been shot, along with his family members. Police quickly arrived at the scene to find themselves at a bloody massacre. 3 dead people lying in separate rooms and an injured man with a gunshot wound in his foot. They immediately administered first aid, while the man claimed there was someone that entered their house and opened fire. However, an odd detail concerned the officers. The house showed no sign of a break-in. What exactly happened here? Was the intruder a professional, so skilled that he left no trace behind? Before we uncover the truth, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new video. Alexander Ken Jackson was born on September 20th, 2000 in Oregon. His sister, Sabrina, was 18 months younger than him. Both of them were bright, ambitious children, and their parents, Jan and Melissa, always supported and encouraged them to reach for their full potential. Jan was a retired IT professional, and Melissa was a former photographer. They valued education and worked hard to ensure both kids had the opportunity to try anything they wanted. At home, their evenings were spent watching movies, playing board games, and debating every topic. The family was close-knit and even had yearly vacation. In 2011, they moved from Oregon to a quiet neighborhood in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Both Alex and Sabrina were dedicated members of their high school's marching and concert bands. But music wasn't Alex's only passion. He was also an Eagle Scout, mastering outdoor survival skills and rifle shooting. Despite his quiet and introverted nature, Alex had no trouble making friends. His sister, on the other hand, was outgoing and full of energy, the opposite of him in many ways. As he grew older, Alex found comfort in video games. Every night, he stayed up late, chatting with online friends as he played into the early hours. After graduating from Kennedy High School, Alex enrolled at the University of Iowa. A year later, Sabrina followed, attending the College of Liberal Arts just 35 miles from home. But beneath the surface of their seemingly normal family life, something inside Alex had begun to shift. He felt different, out of place. His perfect sister, his parents with their boomer ideologies, they weren't like him. While he remained close to his dad, his mother and sister increasingly got on his nerves. Their political views irritated him, but Sabrina, in particular, had become unbearable. When he learned that she planned to vote independent in her first election, his resentment deepened. In June 2021, Alex and Sabrina returned home from college for summer break. It was supposed to be a happy season of family gatherings and joyful moments, but an unexpected tragedy erupted and shattered everything. On Tuesday morning, June 15th, 2021, Alex was jolted awake by the sound of gunshots, 10 rapid shots ringing through the house. He bolted down the hallway to the staircase that led to the lower level to see what happened. But when he reached the bottom of the stairs, he found something horrifying. An intruder was standing over the lifeless body of his father, who was sprawled on the ground, clearly shot. In a panic, Alex lunged at the perpetrator, trying to wrestle the rifle from his hands. During the struggle, the gun went off, and Alex felt a searing pain as a bullet shot through his foot at close range. But the fight had spooked the intruder. He fled the scene, running through the back door of the house. Alex, dazed and bleeding, crawled back down the hallway to his bedroom to get his phone. He tried to tie a makeshift tourniquet around his leg to stem the bleeding, and with trembling hands, he called 911.
Lynn County Sheriff, where is your emergency?
Someone broke into our house. Our address is 4414 Oak Leaf Court, Northeast. I've been shot. My other family member's been shot. I need help immediately.
Okay, hold on just a second. Are they still there?
No, they left.
Okay. Did you get a look at them?
No.
Could you tell if it was a man or a woman?
Man.
Do you remember what color shirt or what color hair this guy had? Anything about him?
Black?
You think it was a black male or a black shirt?
Shirt?
Okay.
Alex's description was vague. All he could say was that the person was a black man in black clothes, and that he thought the intruder might have entered through the back door. Meanwhile, armed police officers were descending on the quiet street. But with so little information from Alex, they had no idea what they were about to walk into. Were there only one or more intruders? What sort of weapons did they use? Were they still armed, or did they throw their weapons away? There was too much unknown, but they still had to act swiftly because Alex's life was on the line. Officers secured the street, but then felt something was off. No one was visible around the house, and the neighborhood seemed unusually still, despite a person just calling for help and there were gunshots. One of the officers even suspected that the call might have been a prank. But when they entered the house through the back door, the nightmare unfolded before their eyes. Jan's body was found at the bottom of the staircase leading to the second floor, next to a rifle. In the adjacent hallway, Alex lay bleeding, a gunshot wound in his leg. This was no prank. The police then asked about any others that were in the house, and Alex pointed toward Sabrina's room. Officers rushed inside, but it was too late. Sabrina had died on her bed, suffering from multiple shots to her chest and face. But that was not all. As the police went upstairs, they found Melissa's body lying in the master bedroom, also shot to death. At first glance, it seemed like Alex had narrowly escaped death. He was the only survivor of the horrific massacre that claimed his entire family in their own home. But the police had an unsettling feeling. There was something not so simple about this case. Once the house was cleared, medics were called to tend to Alex's gunshot wound. As he was helped out and put on a stretcher, one officer made a request.
Hey, or let them know it's possible that he's... Hey Jesse, you want to double check his pockets before?
Yep.
I did while we were down there real quick, but...
You haven't had anything in there?
Nothing on you're not supposed to have?
I hope not.
Okay, we just want to make sure that everybody's safe.
A lot of pockets.
There's a possibility that...
The same officer who earlier suspected the 911 call was a prank now had an unsettling feeling that Alex somehow might have been involved in the murders. But it was too soon to confirm anything, and Alex was then taken in an ambulance to go to the hospital. On the way, Alex recounted what happened that morning to the medics.
You ran into who?
The man.
Okay. You ran into him how? Thank you.
You got any film?
With like a fist or... Okay.
This church.
Okay. So you were sleeping on the couch in the porch, or sorry, you were sleeping in the porch.
Yeah.
Okay. Then what happened? Did you hear gunshots or what?
Yeah.
Okay, you heard gunshots. And then saw somebody in your house.
Yeah.
Okay.
Meanwhile, police's investigation at the Jackson home was underway, and red flags appeared almost immediately. According to Alex, an unknown intruder had broken in and brutally killed 3 members of his family. Yet there were no signs of forced entry. No broken locks, no shattered windows, no foreign footprints, no struggle marks. Nothing to suggest someone had entered the home uninvited. The only evidence was bullet casings and bloodstains, which could only prove what happened, not the presence of anyone other than the Jackson family. To be certain, a K-9 unit was deployed. The dog meticulously searched every corner of the house, sniffing for any unfamiliar scents. At the same time, detectives tried to find DNA evidence belonging to someone who didn't live in the home. But after all the effort, nothing was found. The more they examined the scene, the more it pointed to one chilling possibility. There was no intruder at all. Last but not least, officers turned to the neighborhood. They questioned neighbors, requesting access to doorbell cameras and neighborhood CCTV. The Jacksons had their own security cameras too. After reviewing every footage, what they found was even more damning. There was no one approaching or leaving the house on that day, except for the police. The intruder Alex spoke of, he was either invisible or simply didn't exist. When Alex arrived at the hospital, detectives didn't hesitate to voice their concern.
Alex, the reality is there's not any evidence that anyone else was over at your house. It's okay. It's okay.
There was a man there.
Alex, do you want to tell us what happened? What really happened?
And we're not here to judge you at all. Like I said,
I went downstairs, and the man was there. I fought him. I got shot at. I think he left.
Alex, that's not what the evidence is showing.
What do you mean?
Well, like I said, if there had been a person there would be some evidence that he showed up. There would also be evidence that he left.
No matter how hard the detectives pushed, Alex stuck to his story. He insisted there was an intruder, though his details were vague and inconsistent. He was on a lot of drugs for the wound on his foot, so he used that excuse for his fuzzy memory, despite claiming he had wrestled with the attacker for a while. Detectives weren't buying it. They asked if anyone had a grudge against his family, anyone who might have wanted to hurt them, but Alex couldn't come up with a single name, so they pressed on and asked him about his relationship with his own family.
Have you ever had any problems with him? Like serious problems with him? I mean, judging your life or choices?
He's proud of me.
Yeah. How about mom?
Yeah.
Same? Sister?
I guess.
Yes. Can you tell me about this relationship with your sister? It doesn't seem like it's quite
I mean,
what
we're
you would
brothers.
be.
We're not the closest.
do you like her?
Yeah, she's my sister.
Over about an hour of interviewing, Alex's story shifted multiple times, especially when it came to Sabrina, his sister. At first, he seemed like he didn't know what had happened to her, and even asked if she was okay. But the detectives quickly reminded him of his own 911 call, where he had clearly stated that his family members, including Sabrina, had been shot. This meant he already knew everything before the police arrived.
When you called 911,
Yeah.
okay, you told them that your mom and your sister had been shot.
Did I?
Yeah,
I don't know.
you did. Because we have the recording, okay? And that's what you told them. And I was talking to you. You said
I'm
that
assuming the worst. But
well,
I hope the best.
okay. What would make you just assume that then?
Everyone. I don't know.
Alex immediately changed his story again, saying he had only seen Sabrina lying in bed and didn't have the chance to check on her. But only moments later, he backtracked, denying that he had seen her at all. Each inconsistency deepened the detective's suspicions. It was becoming clearer and clearer that Alex wasn't just confused, he was hiding something. The police knew they wouldn't get a confession out of Alex, so they focused on gathering hard evidence. Turns out the rifle at the scene, the very weapon that caused the tragic deaths of the Jacksons, belonged to Jan Jackson himself, not any outside intruder. Alex claimed that the night before the incident, he and his father had cleaned it up because it got jammed a long time ago. Afterwards, they left it unsecured on the fireplace in the living room. So they just randomly clean up a weapon because of a malfunction that happened long before? The situation didn't sit right with the detectives at all. So to test Alex's credibility, they asked him how to clean a gun. He gave a vague and confused answer, which clearly showed that he had no idea. But there was another crucial detail. This rifle was a .22 caliber semi-automatic, capable of holding 11 rounds. Yet, more than 11 shots had been fired during the attack. This meant that the intruder, after entering the house and grabbing the gun, would have needed to load it, start shooting, and then reload. The problem is, this wasn't a typical firearm. It was so unusual that even seasoned investigators, experts who'd handled countless guns, were stumped when they first examined it. They actually had to watch YouTube tutorials just to figure out how to load it. So how could a random intruder, unfamiliar with the house or the gun, figure it out instantly? And how did they manage it in such a short time without triggering the cameras or leaving any trace? Officers also found no fingerprints of anyone other than Jan and Alex's on the weapon. When confronted with this, Alex suddenly remembered that the intruder had been wearing gloves, a detail he had never mentioned before. It was obvious that Alex was making up details on the spot to patch the growing holes in his story. The more detectives looked into it, the more questions raised. There was nothing broken or stolen in the house, which means if there really had been an intruder, they only came with intent to kill. But why would a killer enter a home without a weapon, only to use a gun they just conveniently find inside? And not just any gun, but the one that was very complex and difficult to use, even for professionals. Moreover, after mercilessly executing 3 family members, why would he spare Alex, the only witness who could identify him, not to mention already injured, and just ran away? None of these theories made sense. Another undeniable evidence was the bloodstains on the hallway. According to Alex, he had struggled with the intruder near his father's body, was shot in the foot during the fight, and then crawled back to his bedroom to tie a tourniquet around his leg. But the crime scene told a different story. There was no blood trail leading from Jan's body to Alex's room. Instead, the only bloody footprints found were moving in one direction, out of Alex's bedroom, not into it. This meant one thing. Alex hadn't crawled to his room after being shot, but he had walked into his bedroom, tied the tourniquet around his leg, and then deliberately shot himself in the foot to stage his injuries, trying to cover up what he had done. At this point, the police were certain that Alex was the killer. However, despite all odds, Alex refused and denied anything that involved him in this crime.
There's nobody coming and going from your house. Nobody entered or left your house. Okay. So the person that hurt your family was inside your home. Okay.
Who?
Well,
It's not me.
you didn't hurt your family?
No, I would never.
There's issues in your house with your family that you're having. You gotta share those with us.
I don't have issues with it.
When's the first time you thought about this scenario?
I didn't do it. Okay? I would never hurt my family. They are important to me. I love them. You may not understand that, but I love them. Well, what are you guys trying to say?
Well, what we're trying to tell you is that we know what happened. And what we'd like you to tell us is why.
Alex still insisted that he was innocent, even though officers offered him numerous escape routes. His story, which changed time and time again, still had the same details. An unidentified intruder, a robbery gone wrong turned into a mass murder. Detectives kept pointing out plot holes, but he refused to come clean. After being treated at the hospital, Alex was then transferred to the local police station for a more thorough interrogation. But just like before, the interviews spiraled into an endless loop of vague excuses and unexplained contradictions.
You still think someone was there? Yeah. You know, I know someone was there. Okay, how did they get out? I can't really remember. Probably the door they came in, but
I'll give you the respect and believe you until it just gets to the point where it's just fantasy now. Okay? And when we get, so what do? We expedite the ring cameras because hey, if we can see some guy coming and going from the house, that is what we need to see. Well, we don't see that.
The interrogation led nowhere, but based on the evidence found, police were able to theorize what really happened. Jan, Melissa, and Sabrina's forensic analysis confirmed that all 3 had died from gunshot wounds from .22 caliber rifle. Jan had been shot 3 times, once in the chest and twice in the neck, likely as he came downstairs. But the true horror lay in what happened after. As he collapsed face down on the carpet, the killer delivered 2 more execution-style shots to the back of his head. The bullets caused catastrophic brain injuries, each one fatal on its own. His autopsy also revealed blunt force trauma to his face and lower lip, likely caused by his fall after being shot. Sabrina was killed in her bed, with one bullet going through her eye, the other through her torso. The second bullet tore through her liver, exited her stomach, and passed through her arm. There was no gunshot residue on her wounds, meaning the shooter had fired from a distance, most likely from the doorway. Melissa was found on the floor of the master bedroom. She had suffered a grazing shot to the scalp, and another entered her skull through her right temple. But the fatal shots were far more brutal. Gunshot residue on her face showed that she had been shot point-blank through her left eye, likely while she was already lying injured on the floor. The brutality of their last moments left no doubt. The killer had wanted to make sure they were dead. Even after the first wounds were fatal enough, he delivered additional shots, a cold-blooded act to ensure his victims had no chance to survive. There was no hesitation, no mercy, no way to fight back. With all the evidence in hand, detectives had enough to arrest Alex and build a solid case against him. But one crucial piece was still missing. Why did he do it? What could have driven him to such rage that he executed his entire family? Without Alex's cooperation, the exact motive remained unclear. But the most reasonable explanation they could find pointed to one thing: money. Alex had recently had an intense conversation with his father. Jan had already paid half of Alex's college tuition, but was frustrated by his dropping grades during the COVID-19 pandemic. He believed Alex was spending too much time playing video games and gave him a choice: either get a job or move out of the house. At the time of the murders, Alex had only $30 in his bank account. If his father cut him off, he had nowhere to go. Maybe that was the breaking point that led to his deadly decision. However, when Alex was brought to trial, this became the central argument. His attorneys claimed that this motive wasn't strong enough for someone to snap and murder their entire family.
Or some sort of a motive. Was it inheritance? They have no proof that Alex would inherit. They have not testified about a will, whether there is a will, whether there isn't a will, what it says. Or whether Alex even knows. His grades dropping during COVID, that's a reason to kill your whole family? Or he didn't have a job? How many kids didn't? How many kids had their grades drop during COVID? And Alex said that his father was treating him fairly, that his father was letting him make his own mistakes.
To strengthen their argument, the defense team even called Alex's Eagle Scout leader to testify on his behalf. The leader described Alex as a decent young man with no history of violence, someone he could trust in any situation. He even stated that Alex had been responsible enough to take on a leadership role within the Scouts. But the prosecutors painted a very different picture. The Jacksons had a family dog named Hero, a beloved pet gifted to Sabrina when she was a child. According to Sabrina's friends, Hero hated Alex, and for good reason. They had witnessed Alex hitting the dog multiple times. Hero avoided him at all costs and would become defensive whenever Alex was near Sabrina. Obviously, Alex wasn't as harmless as his defense claimed. At the end, the prosecutors came to a conclusion.
That as you're evaluating everything that you've seen over the last couple of weeks that's been presented in this case, using your reason and common sense, you're going to find that the defendant's story does not make sense. That it is unreasonable to believe.
With all the undeniable evidence, there was no other suspect, no other explanation for the brutal deaths of 3 Jackson family members. Ultimately, in January 2023, the jury sided with the prosecution and found Alex guilty on all counts. 2 months later, in March 2023, he was charged 3 consecutive life sentences with no possibility of parole and had to pay $450,000 in restitution. Justice had been served, but it could never undo the horror of what had happened inside the Jackson home that summer morning. What do you think about this case? Do you believe that there was indeed an intruder that the cameras failed to catch? Or Alex had truly murdered his whole family just because he didn't want to find a job? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section. And if there's a case you'd like us to cover next, feel free to drop your suggestions. Until next time, take care.